James 1 and 1. Greetings to the 12 tribes of Israel scattered abroad. Starting with the number 1 tribe, Joseph, down to the number 12th tribe, Judah. The least of all their tribes. But Yah loves them all. Okay. We're going to start this text off going back to 1 Samuel 20 and 6. It said, if thy father all missed me, say David earnestly asked leave of me, he might run to Bethlehem, his city. There is the yearly sacrifice for all the family, all the 12 tribes of Israel. And we know, we jump back, and we also know, as I left off on the other video, 1 Samuel 1 and 3. No, take that back. We're going to Judges 21:19. 21:19 says, he said, behold, there is a feast of Yahweh in Shiloh at the yearly at the place which on the north side of Bethel, on the east side of the highway. It goes from Bethel to Shechem and the south of Lebanon. Therefore he commanded the children of Benjamin, saying, go you lie in wait in the vineyards, and see, behold, the daughters of Shiloh come out and dance before you, and go and take you a wife from Shiloh, which is the city of David, Shiloh. Now what I want to do is, since we know in this verse here, 1 Samuel 20 and 6, that David was basically running from Saul, that Samuel had anointed to be king, and Samuel anointed David also afterwards, and told Saul he could never, that he would lose his kingship. Therefore, he wanted to murder and kill David. See, David was like we talked about, his father was from the tribe of Ephraim. That's why he was called the Ephraimite. Or, as we know in, we back up, I'm just laying a little groundwork before I move forward. As we know in 1 Samuel 17:12, and David was the son of the Ephrathite, Bethlehem. It says Judah, but it can't be so, because Jesse was a Ephrathite of Bethlehem. Actually, it says in Genesis, Ephratah. Now, what I want to show you here is also, we're going to back up. We're going to go to, I believe, Samuel. Go back to Samuel 1 and 1, proving what a Ephrathite. Jesse was called an Ephrathite, but it says here, there was a certain man of Ramathaim, Zoiel, of Mount Ephraim, and his name was Elkanah, the son of Jeroham, the son of Elihu, the son of Tahu, the son of Zup, an Ephrathite, same as Jesse. And it tells you in verse 3, actually I'll read 2 and 3, and he had 2 wives, and one was Hannah, the name of the other was Peninnah, and they had children. And verse 3 said, this man went out of his city yearly to worship and sacrifice unto Yahuwah of hosts in Shiloh, and his 2 sons Eli. See, that tells you right there that they were from Shiloh. Also telling you they were from Ephraim, which is Shiloh. Ephraim is the territory of the whole territory of that region. But Shiloh was the place where they had the yearly sacrifices, or had the Ark of the Covenant, where they did everything. where all the 12 tribes came. So, but anyway, we're going to go down here, and we know in Samuel that Saul was wanting to kill David, so he had to flee for his life. And this is what I want to show you. It says in Samuel 22 and 5 said, and the prophet Gad said unto David, abide not in the hold, depart and get thee into the land of Judah. Then David departed and came to Hereth. You see, if David was already in Judah, as they claim, like as it claims over there, and in the text in some places, if he was already in Judah, why would the prophet tell him to flee into Judah? So it don't make no sense. See what it was? He was in Shiloh. He was in Bethlehem, Ephratah, and Shiloh, and that's where in Ephraim territory, and that's why he had to flee into Judah, because Saul was king in Shiloh. Well, actually, he was a Benjamite, but all the prophets, all the ones he anointed as kings, would take their authority in Shiloh, and that's why David had to flee into Judah from Shiloh. That's just plain horse sense, like I said before. And then, like in verse 7, 22 and 7 says of 1 Samuel, then Saul said unto his servants that stood about him, hear you the Benjamites, will thee, son of Jesse, get every one in your fields and vineyards, and make you all captains of thousands, captains of hundreds. He said, they, in verse 8 said, and they made a league with the son of Jesse, which was an Ephrathite, or from Ephraim. Now, we're going to go to 1 Samuel. See, I'm skipping a whole lot of things, a lot of verses and things, and going through but what I'm doing, this is my goal. It's to go through the Bible and prove to you that everything that happened in the Bible, from Genesis to all the way to Jeremiah, all the way up to Daniel, actually, all this was a prelude of Shiloh. So we're going to read 1 Samuel 25:1. And Samuel died, and all the Israelites were gathered together and wept over him. They buried him in the house of Ramah. And David arose and went down to the wilderness of Paran. See, Ramah was in Shiloh also. I mean, not Shiloh, but in the territory of Ephraim also, where Samuel was from. So that means that Samuel was also from the tribe of Ephraim also. Or he was a Ephraimite. See, what most of you Christians have been hoodwinked on, you've been told that Judah incorporates all the 12 tribes of Israel. We know that's insane. You know that Judah fought against Israel many times. Ephraim fought against Benjamin, and Benjamin against Judah, and Issachar, and all these different tribes fought against each other. How could they be from the same peoples and the same, and all come out of the same bloodline of Judah? They wouldn't fight. Judah ain't fighting against themselves. So it's just like I said, you dumb sheep, been dumbed down. You ain't got even the sense of a horse to think things for yourself. The old man told me a long time ago. He said, what the problem with most people is, they let everybody think for themselves. They don't know how to think for. They won't go out there and read and study for themselves. They want a footnote in the Bible to tell them what it means. They want a preacher to tell them what it means. Here I am. I just want you to study to prove me wrong. If I'm wrong, don't follow me. I'm not up here I ain't begging nobody to believe anything that I'm saying. All I'm asking you is to use your common sense, horse sense, and quit being bullheaded, stubborn, hard-headed, and do what the scripture says. Study to show yourself approved, rightly dividing the word of truth. Why you got to rightly divide it? Because it's been tampered with, been messed with. That's why. Anyway, we're going to move on down the road. We got a lot of things to talk about. And then we're going to 2 Samuel now. Now, here's where whenever David went into, was fleeing the wrath of Saul from Shiloh, he did go into the land of Judah and to a place called Hebron for 12 years or so. Actually, it says right here, 7 years and 6 months. Well, if he used your common Yah sense, if he went into Hebron for 7 years and then he left Hebron, where did he go? He went right back to the city of David in Shiloh for the remainder of his life. Because Saul had fell upon his sword, and the kingdom was given to David, so he went back. He went back to his homeland, Shiloh and Shechem, and that's why it says right here. We're going to read it. Second Samuel 2 and 9 through 11, and made him king over Gilead and over Asher, talking about King David, and over Jezreel, and over Ephraim, and over Benjamin, and over all Israel. And then it goes on down, it says, Ebosheth, Saul's son, was 40 years old when he began to reign over Israel, and reigned 2 years. But the house of Judah followed David. And the time that David was king in Hebron, see, Judah followed David, or the house of David, Ephraim, for 7 years and 6 months. Okay. We're going to go to 2 Samuel. I believe we're in 3 and 10. Remember these verses and go back and read them. We'll start with 10. He said he will translate the kingdom from the house of Saul to set up the throne of David over Israel and over Judah from Dan even to Bathsheba. Okay. We're going to go to 2 Samuel 4 and 1. And came the tribes of Israel to David unto Hebron, and spake, saying, Behold, we are of thy bone and of thy flesh. And then verse 4 says, David was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned for 40 years. And I got Shiloh here. But in Hebron he reigned in Judah 7 years and 6 months. Now it says in Jerusalem he reigned 30 and 3 years. That's not true. First of all, there was no Jerusalem because it was Shiloh. We're still in Samuel. Samuel lived 80 years. We know for a fact that the dynasty of Shiloh lasted close to 500 to 600 years. Even historians say 400 to they say from 396 years to about 450 years. But anyway, now the question is, if he reigned in Judah for 7 years and 6 months, now how did he reign in Judah or Jerusalem for 30 years when we know that's in the land of Judah? Because he just said he reigned in Hebron, Judah for 7 years, see? So the remainder of his years, he went back and reigned in Shiloh, and he was over all Israel and Judah. See, Israel was in the northern tribes, and what they've done, folks, I know it's a hard pill for most people to swallow. Even a lot of these elders who are even racial covenant Caucasian believers can't overcome the lion pen of Judah and the Jerusalem delusion that's been added to the text. But I'm going through the Bible and I'm going to prove that Jerusalem, it's impossible for Jerusalem to exist during the time of Shiloh, the dynasty of Shiloh, where the Ark of the Covenant was placed. Now we're going to go down. This is where we're really going to get down with the word. I'm going to prove without a doubt that Jerusalem is a delusion. And it was put in there deliberately to throw you off of Shiloh. And just like they took the word Samaria to throw you off the place of called Shechem. Anyway, we're going to read this. 2 Samuel 5 and 7. Nevertheless, David took the stronghold of Zion. The same is the city of David. And David said in that day, whoever gets up and gutter, and the smith and the Jebusites and the lame and the blind that are hated of David's soul shall be chief and captain. And David dwelt in the fort which is called the city of David, and he built around from Millo and inwards. Now this is the word, that's what I told you on the first video, to pay attention to Millo. Now where did he do? He built about Millo and inwards, right? Let's go to 2 Samuel. We're going to go back to Judges. And we're going to see where this Millo is. And you can't get out of this. It's just right here. It's right in the Word. It's just been hidden by the lion pens and the carnal mind, and those that won't search the Word, and those that already glued their foundation to the floor or concreted their feet in the floor, that Judah is the bloodline of the Messiah when he's not. It's like our father's fixing to have to take his sledgehammer and beat the hell out of these priests and prophets that hold on to Judah, because it's coming soon, sooner than you can believe. Now we go to Judges chapter 9. We're going to start right here. First, I'm going to start with 9 and 1. And Amalek, the son of Gideon, went to Shechem and to his mother's brethren. And then it says, Gideon, which are the, said to his brethren, I am your bone and your flesh. And verse 3 says, his mother's brethren spake to him in the ears of the men of Shechem. And then we're going to go down. We're going on down to verse 6 of Judges 9:6. And all the men of Shechem gathered together, and all the house of Millo went and made Amalek king by the plain of the pillar that was in Shechem. Now you notice that word Millo. If you go read it, for yourself. Millo. Then we're going to go read verse 20 of 9. And it says, but if not, let fire come out of Amalek and devour the men of Shechem and the house of Millo. What? The word Millo is a code word for Shiloh. It's the same place, same thing. But there was a wall that was built around Shiloh, which is the city of David, the real city of David, that was changed by the lion pen of the scribes to Jerusalem throughout the scriptures. And it says, Millo, let a fire come from the men of Shechem and from the house of Millo and devour Amalek's. Now, that's Millo, which is Shiloh. Then you get over here in 2 Samuel, and it said, and David said, get thee out. It says in verse 9, 2 Samuel 5 and 9, and David dwelt in the fort called the city of David, and he built around from Millo inwards, or Shiloh inward. And then you get down here in verse 13, it says, David took him more concubines and wives out of Jerusalem after he was come from Hebron. Now, when he left Hebron, he went back into Shiloh and took in more wives. It was not Jerusalem. That's added into it. There was no Jerusalem that we call Jerusalem today until Judah went into captivity by the Babylonians for 70 years or however long they was. Then when they was released from Babylon captivity, then they went back into Palestine, or the place they call Jerusalem, delusion today. Then they built that city called Jerusalem. But there was no city called Jerusalem until after they were set free from the Babylonians. Then they rebuilt. But the 10 northern tribes, the other tribes wasn't even there, except for the poor, the ones that the Babylonians captured on the way of capturing Judah. They did get a lot of the Benjamites and some of all the tribes that were left behind that the Assyrians didn't take into captivity into the north. We're going to get into that. That's going to be on some other series. We're going to get deep into the word. That's why I'm going step by step through this, explaining everything as I go. And this is not going to be for you unbelievers. This is not going to be for you doubters and your crybabies that don't want to hang your head on Judah. Because I'm telling you right now, like Apostle Paul said, they'll come preaching another Messiah, and that is a Jewish Messiah. And he already knew it. And that's why the Jews crucified the Messiah in the first place, because he didn't come through the bloodline of Judah. Just like Judah did to Joseph and sold him into Egypt. So the Messiah had to go into Egypt because a Canaanite Jew called Herod murdered 144,000 children, or 2-year-old males, all virgins, 144,000 from each tribe, trying to kill the baby Messiah. So they had to flee into Egypt, just like Joseph had to go into Egypt, or was sold into Egypt. Whew, mercy. So, there you go. Remember Millo, Shiloh. It's the same location, the same place. It's the fort of David. Now we're going to go to verse 16, 6 and 16 of 2 Samuel. And the ark of Yahuwah came into the city of David. Michal, Saul's daughter, looked through the window And the king leaping and dashing before Yahweh and despised him in her heart. Well, we know Saul, daughter, was not a Judite. She was a Benjamite. So she would have been, so David would have been in the territory of Ephraim, the city of David, whenever Saul's daughter was mocking him. She wasn't in the land of Judah. She wasn't a Judite. She was a Benjamite. So there he was actually in Shiloh again, which Bethel is only just a rock throw away from Shiloh anyway. And when you go to your ancient maps, not the ones they have today, you can't hardly trust the maps they got today for 100%. But you go to your 1934 maps and even older than that, you'll find out that Bethel was right next door to Shiloh, just a little bit below it to the south. But anyway, that's some history you have to study on your own. All right, we're going to keep going. We're going to go to 2 Samuel 12 and 22. We're getting to, it says, and Absalom spake unto his brother Amnon, good nor bad. And verse 23 says, and it came to pass after 2 full years that Absalom, the sheep herder, in Baal Harzor, which is beside Ephraim, and Absalom invited all the king's sons. Now, why did that's David's son, why did he invite them in Ephraim? Because that was where David's son, that's where the city of David was. Common sense. And then we're going to keep going. Now here we go. I'm gonna read this the way it is, but I know it's false. But then I'm gonna show you in another text and prove to you what I'm saying is true. He says, David went by the ancient Mount of Olives. He said the ancient mount. The ancient mount talking about when Joshua, that's ancient, went back when Joshua and all of them, where his name was at the first, was in Shiloh and Ephraim. And they got the Mount of Olives here, which actually was the Mount Ephraim. See, they had a Mount Ephraim that was replaced by a Mount of Olives. See, the further you get into Samuel, the further on down the line, all the way you get into Chronicles, they start gradually pulling you away from Shiloh. And we know when we get to 1 Kings, 2 Kings, and Chronicles, that's just rehearsing the story of David anyway, and Samuel and all that. So why would it change from Joshua and Judges and 1 Samuel and gradually start changing this and just being distorted into some other territory, some other lands that did not even exist during the time of Samuel and Joshua? Folks, there was no Jerusalem during the time of the prophets from Genesis all the way up to Samuel, David, Solomon, and Jeroboam, and all these people, Isaiah, Daniel, and all of them. But anyway, we're going to keep on reading. Because whenever further you get in here, they add that Jerusalem in there. Jerusalem. They even use the word Jerusalem where it's supposed to be in Judah and Israel. And then they use Jerusalem just to keep. They don't want you to know that Israel is separate from Judah. But we know it is. And we know that the Bible said that he would take the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Ephraim and make them, that there were two divided sticks. He would take them and make one stick, They would come together and in the last days to conquer our enemies. And you better find out who Judah really is. The land of Judah today is actually England. What it's really saying is England and or Great Britain, as we want to call it, and the United States will become one, and they will take care of business. But anyway, here we go. So, we're going to go on down here. Keep on rocking and rolling down the road a little bit. Okay, bro. Praise Yahweh, hallelujah. Right. We're in Kings now. I want to go to so we got a different interpretation right here, but we're going to read this in First Kings. We'll go 2 and 10 and 11. It said, David slept with his fathers and was buried in the city of David. Now, when David slept with his fathers, was buried where his forefathers was, I'm going to ask y'all all a question. Where was Joshua buried? Where was Jacob buried? Where was Abraham buried? Where was all these forefathers behind them buried? They was all buried in Shechem. Now, I can back up. We can back up and read that. And let's back up and read a little bit of that and see. Let's go to Joshua. There's one really good place I want to read here. Joshua, got plenty of time. Yeah, probably pretty far down in here. I'm going to read Joshua 21:21. For they gave them Shechem with their cities and Mount Ephraim to be a city of refuge. The city of refuge is the city of David, folks, when you read through the scriptures. Now we're going to go to, listen. Now this is Joshua 24:32. And the bones of Joseph, which the children of Israel brought out of Egypt, buried them in Shechem in the grave site of Jacob, or the parcel ground which Jacob bought of the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem, for 100 pieces of silver. And it says, and Eleazar, the son of Aaron, died, and they buried him on the hill that pertains to Phinehas, his son, which was given to him in Mount Ephraim. See, that Mount Ephraim I was telling you about, they've changed it to Mount Moriah. He's going to have to overcome this here deception and false translations. And I'm telling you, if you believe this King James is 100% legit, you are a fool. Because the Bible even tells you if they come changing anything in there, and if he wouldn't have said it, if he warned us of it, he didn't know they was going to do it. And he already said to beware of the lying pen of the scribes and the Pharisees, didn't he? Think about this. Let's just say metaphorically speaking or whatever, that I am right. What if I'm telling you the truth? Yep, at least can you consider it? I'm not preaching for money. I'm not preaching for your pocketbook, tithe and all. I don't have a place. I haven't got no what you call 10,000 people following me, or 100,000 people following me. I don't care about all that. Oh yeah, that could be a temptation for any man, but I don't want that. I want the truth to be preached, and that's it. And that's what I've always prayed for since I was a knee high to a grasshopper. My mother prayed it for me also, said, let the word be a lodging place, let it in his heart that it be for the truth. And I've always prayed for the truth. Even when I didn't know the truth, I was going out in the woods and fast and pray for the truth. Now y'all has given me this here revelation and truth, and it's held to get people to even listen, to even consider it. And then let me tell you what's really going to happen. You sheep, the one that's being controlled by the Judite prophets, and they know they're going to be hell bent on keeping their sheep locked down in the pastures, because they receive the tithes and the offerings and all they getting tax 501c tax breaks and everything else from the government and whatever else benefits they get from preaching the lie. And that includes Seventh-day Adventists, Jehovah's Witness, Pentecostal, Assemblies of God, Church of Christ, Methodist, Lutheran. You just name them all the way down the board. So many of them I can't name them all, but every one of them is preaching the same thing. Judah, because they're blind. But I just want the sheep to hear it. I want you to consider it. Anyway, let's go back to the scriptures. And we're going to go to, it says in verse 11 that David reigned in Israel for 40 years. He said Israel, not Judah. You are to know that the 10 northern tribes were in the territory of Ephraim. That's who he was talking about. Because all the 10 tribes of Israel came to Shiloh. And then it said he reigned only 7 years in Jerusalem there, or Hebron. Then it rephrased and said 33 years in Jerusalem. That's a lie. How could he reign 40 years in Israel and 33 years in Jerusalem? That don't make no sense. I guess they adding the 7 years to the let's see what we got right here. Sounds like they're adding the 7 years to the 33 years. 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. That's exactly what they're doing. But that's not correct. I guess y'all just giving me plain old eyes to see, and because I'm too dumb not to believe him, to trust him and believe him and hear his voice. And most of you are too smart to, you think you got it all figured out, and you ain't really got a damn thing figured out because you've been blindsided by the lying pen of the scribes. And then it goes down to say, then we're going to skip over there to verse 27. So Solomon thrust out Abner, being priest of Yahuwah, that he might fulfill the word of Yahuwah. He spake concerning the house of Eliam in Shiloh. Now, why would he say that? Why would Solomon thrust out Abner for being the priest in Shiloh? Then you go back over here to verse 11, and it correlates with 27 that Solomon was in Shiloh. And he cast him out. He cast out Abiathar from being priest in Shiloh. Well, it didn't say Jerusalem. So you're going to have to figure. See, they get caught. They're getting caught by their own lies. See. All right. Now we're going to go on. Keep on reading. Now I got right here. We're going to read 2 Kings chapter 3 and 1. And Solomon made an empathy of Pharaoh in Egypt. And it says, David, until he had made an end of building his own house and the house of Yahuwah, the wall, it says the wall of Jerusalem round about, but it's not the wall of Jerusalem, it's the wall of Shiloh. Or Millo. And I'm gonna before I go there, we're gonna go to we're gonna go back over there anyway in a little while. Listen to this. This is talking about. This is 1 Kings 9:1. It came to pass when Solomon had finished the building of the house. And then it goes on, verse 15. And this is the reason the levy which King Solomon raised for the build the house of Yahuwah and his own house and Millo. Then it says the wall of Jerusalem. Well, we know in Judges, it says that Millo was in Shechem, in Shiloh, the wall of David. But they added Jerusalem in there at the end of it. I always do that. And like I said, then you got this. I just have to go back to Judges because I had to keep reading these things to bring it to your remembrance because it's just the way it is. It says right here, Judges 9 and 13, and the men of Shechem in the house of Millo, Shiloh, let the fire come down from the men of Shechem and from the house of Millo and devour Amalek. Okay, verse 6 says of 96 of Judges, the men of Shechem gathered together the house of Millo and the plain of the pillar that was in Shechem. You telling me with Solomon right here, when he said he built around Millo's different, it's the same location, the same place that's in Judges, because Samuel lived all the way through here. David was alive when during the time of Samuel and Saul. Now, that's I want to read that, and that's why it says over here in chapter 3 of Kings 1, when David had made an end up building his house, the wall, it says Jerusalem, it's the wall of Millo in Shiloh. That's exactly what it is. And we're going to catch them with their pants down, catch them lying here in just a minute. Here we go. Verse 15, 1 Kings says, Solomon awoke in a dream and came, it says, to Jerusalem. Actually, came to the temple and stood before the Ark of the Covenant. Where was the Ark of the Covenant placed, folks? For 400 years, 500 years? It was in Shiloh. This is the first temple. They're trying to make you believe that Shiloh was Jerusalem when it wasn't. That's why everybody believes that in two separate temples, and they built up on the temple of they actually believe that Jerusalem is built upon the temple of the first temple that was in Shiloh that they called Jerusalem. That's impossible because we know that everything was taken from one location to another location. Anyway, we're going to go down to we're going to read verse 7 of 1 Kings 4 and 7. It says, and Solomon had 12 officers over Israel, and his mouth at the year made provisions, and these are the names of the sons of Hur in Mount Ephraim. So that's where Solomon was at. But then they'll translate Jerusalem, but yet you can read in between the lines, and you know the timeline, and it's just the way it is. Praise Yahuwah. Now this is another proof right here. Listen to this. Chapter 6 and 1. It came to pass in the 480th year after the children of Israel were come out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year Solomon's reign over Israel. Listen to this. 480th year. Now if you go all the way back to Exodus, and then you come into Joshua's time, I don't know how many years it was during the time of Exodus, but you got to put that in there. And then we know Shiloh lasted at least 400 or 500 years. Well, hold up a minute. I'm going to ask Google. Sometimes I just ask Google the question and see what they say. How long did the Exodus last? "40 years. How long did the time of Shiloh last, where the Ark of the Covenant was placed? Approximately 396 years. That's 400 years. Add the other 40 years to it. Then you got Solomon in the era of Shiloh before it was destroyed. Okay. We're going to go, got a ways to go. A little late tonight, a little tired, but I'm going to finish this video because I've got to make these videos. I got to make, like I said, these 10 videos. I'm trying to make them a little bit shorter when I've been making them. Okay, we'll go back to this right here. We're going to go to verse 9, 1 Kings 9:11. And Hiram, the king of Tyre, finished Solomon with cedar trees. Furnished Solomon with cedar trees and gold according to all his desire. And then the king Solomon gave Hiram 20 cities in the land of Galilee. And then it goes down to say right here in verse 14, and Hiram sent to the king 600 talents of gold and his reason to build the levy which King Solomon raised to build the house of Yahuwah and his own house in Millo and the wall. And it says Jerusalem when we know it's not Jerusalem because Millo is not in Jerusalem according to Judges 9:6 and 9:8. Now we're going to prove this because we're just going to go a little bit further on down in the same place of 1 Kings 9 and 23 and 24. They were the chief officers which over Solomon's work, 550 which were ruled over the people and did all the work. But Pharaoh's daughter came out of the city of David, her house which Solomon had built for her. Then did he build in Millo. I dare you to go look up the word Millo and see what it means. It really means Shiloh. They just changed it to Millo, but it's Shiloh. No matter what, we know Millo and Shechem were right next door to each other. We know Shiloh was right next door. That's where the fort of David was. That's the real city of David, folks. You're gonna have to get over the dumb shit. I'm giving you what I call reasonable evidence that the scripture has been tampered with. You got to know, folks, King James was a wicked tyrant, and we know that the Canaanite seed of Judah, we know Jerusalem was destroyed by the Romans in 70 A.D. So all them Canaanite bad seeds of Judah that Jeremiah talked about were scattered. They didn't have a homeland or a place to go to, so they went back into the Israelite cities in Great Britain and set up shop. And they took and started breeding with our women and everything. That's how they got into the house of Israel, another doorway, just like Judah married a Canaanite in Genesis 38:1, and that's how the bad seed of Judah got into the house of Israel, and that's the one that's ruling over us today. They are the scribes and the Pharisees. They are the ones that got into England and come up with this King James Version Bible, and it's corrupt from Genesis to Revelation with this Jerusalem delusion. I guarantee it, because they hated Joseph. As Judah sold Joseph into Egypt, so did Judah sell the Messiah out. The same spirit, same tribe. I think you ought to better go look at the genealogy of the Kenites. They were the Judites. They had married into the Canaanites. Kenites is another word for Canaanites. The scribes and the Pharisees, and I believe 1 Chronicles 2:55. All right. We're going to go on down a little further. We're going to have more. This verse right here don't convince you. There ain't no verse going to convince you. Let's go to 1 Kings 11, 26 and 27. This is Solomon's son, Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, an Ephrathite of Zediah, Solomon's servant, whose mother's name was Zerah. And verse 27 says, and this was the cause that he lifted up his hand against King Solomon, and he built Millo and repaired the breaches of the city of David. Where in the hell is the city of David? And where in the hell is Millo? According to the prophet in Judges 96. Millo is Shiloh. Then, of course, you get over here in verse 32, and it said, but you shall have one tribe for my servant David's sake, and for Jerusalem's sake, the city which I've chosen out of all the tribes of Israel. Well, we know damn right, you ought to know, dumb prophets, that Jerusalem was not the city that was chosen out of the tribes of Israel, according to Joshua. And Joshua chose Shiloh to put the Ark of the Covenant, and he chose that city that all the other tribes would come and do the Feast of Tabernacles and the Passover and the Feast of Weeks in Shiloh, where he put his name at the first. This is Shiloh, not Jerusalem. It was added. It's a lie. Almost makes me want to cuss. And we go to verse. Here we go again. We'll go to verse 42. Solomon slept with his, 43. Solomon slept with his fathers and was buried in the city of David. His father, and Rehoboam, his son, reigned in his stead. Guess what? Where was David buried? He was buried in the city of David, right? Solomon. Well, where was David buried? He was buried with his forefathers, Jacob and Joseph, in the burial place of where Jacob's well was in Shechem, according to Joshua. Can't get out of it, folks. And we got chapter 12 and verse 1. And Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all Israel came to Shechem to make him king. Why did Rehoboam go to Shechem to be made king? He didn't go to Judah. Don't you know that Shechem was 30 or 40 miles away from Jerusalem that's over there today? Or even from the Hebron, that's probably 40 or 50 miles. Now, why would he, if he was a Judite, why didn't he go to Judah over there to make him king? Because he was not a Judite. He was an Ephraimite, as was King David, Jesse, and all the way back. Judah has twisted the scriptures to try to steal the birthright from Joseph, the birthright tribe, the shepherd's stone of Israel, which is in Genesis 49:24. Shepherd's stone, and as it says in the book of Acts, chapter 4, this is the shepherd's stone of Israel that was rejected. Who rejected it? Judah rejected the shepherd's stone of Israel, the scribes and the Pharisees. Of course. That's why they killed the Messiah. That's why they killed Apostle Paul. That's why they killed all the believers in the book of Acts, even though they changed everything to Jerusalem over there too. I'm going to prove that's on way on down the line. I'm probably going to have to make about 25 of these here videos, but we're going to go through the Old Testament, and then we'll commence on going through the New Testament. That's cut and dried right there too. Don't y'all know that Judah was not called Israel? That the 10 northern tribes were called Israel? If you don't know that much, you don't know nothing. Alright. Keep on going. We're going to go to verse 1 Kings 13 and 32. And then what I want to tell y'all folks, every time you read the word Samaria, because Samaria was actually Shechem and Shiloh, it was they changed it to Samaria. There was no Samaria back then. Only Samaria was actually in the New Testament. I mean, everything was changed all the way down through there, but actually they don't want you to know about Shiloh and Shechem, so they changed it to Samaria. But we know Samaria is still in the same territory according to the Gospels where Jacob's well was. And see, they didn't want you to tell you in the New Testament that Jacob's well, they said it was in Samaria, but they wouldn't tell you it was actually in Shechem and Shiloh because that's too revealing. And that's why it says right here, 32, and saying he cried with the word of Yahuwah against the altar of Bethel and against the house of the high places and the cities of Samaria. And it says right here, it said, and the thing that they sinned unto the house of Jeroboam. See, the Jeroboam was the 10 northern tribes of Israel that got drove out. I'm going to verse 2, 14 and 2, 1 Kings. And Jeroboam said to his wife, Rise, I pray thee, disguise thyself, be not known to be my wife. Jeroboam, get thee to Shiloh. In verse 4, and Jeroboam's wife did so, and rose and went to Shiloh. Why did she go to Shiloh? Because they were in Shechem before. You want me to prove that to you? Let me back it up and prove it to you. If you don't believe that, it says right here in 12 and 1, and Jeroboam went to Shechem, and all the house of Israel were come to Shechem to make him king, all the 10 northern tribes. And that's why it says right here, they went to Shiloh. He actually, Jeroboam, he reigned in Shiloh right there in Shechem for 40 years. Even though they say it's Jerusalem, but watch this right here. Watch this shit. Rehoboam and Solomon reigned. It says in Judah, that's a lie. 41 years and went and began to reign 17 years in Jerusalem. That's a lie. Because I'll prove it to you right here. The city of David was Yahuwah chose out of all the tribes of Israel, like I said before. The scripture said the city he chose out of all the tribes of Israel for them to come to, where the Ark of the Covenant was placed, was in Shiloh. You cannot refute this fact because it's in the scriptures. There was no Jerusalem in the time of Samuel, where his name was at the first, or Judges, or 1 Samuel, or Joshua. You think it changed? You think the city of Shiloh that lasted 400 years all of a sudden get in 1 Kings and still talking about David and all Samuel and all them and Solomon, all these within a time frame? Same time frame of that 400 years? We'll go to 1 Kings 15:24. Ahaz slept with his father and buried him and fathers in the city of David. There you go. Same place that Jacob was buried in Shechem. All the way down. They buried them in their family plot, Ephraimite plot. Just like you bury your family in your family plot in your graveyard. At least that's the way it used to be. Well, most especially way back when in the old days. people did bury their own families and their own plot. All right. I think we're going to stop this video because it's a good stopping point. And I'll talk a little bit. And we're going to go through Second Kings. And then we're going to go to First Chronicles, Second Chronicles. What actually First Chronicles and Second Chronicles is rehearsing First Samuel and Second Samuel, but everything changed. Jerusalem, 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 and First Chronicles, Second Chronicles, when he's talking exactly at the time of King David, and when Saul and Samuel were same. The only thing they done different is they changed the locations. But common sense tells you if Shiloh was during the time of Samuel, it's got to be in First Chronicles, Second Chronicles too. Right? I know you can't be that dumb. No, you ain't that you're dumb, but you just don't want to give up your lies and your pride. Your satanic pride to bow, just like the other 11 brothers didn't want to, the 10 other brothers didn't want to bow down to Joseph when he had the dream and said, you'll all bow down to me. And they did. Because Joseph was a type of the Messiah. Any way you draw it up, every prophecy, every event, everything that ever happened to Joseph was a type and shadow of the Messiah. You cannot take Judah and put it in the prophecy, that Judah is pointing to the Messiah. You cannot, because there ain't nowhere in there. But Joseph, you can't find no sin in Joseph. He was perfect, just like our Messiah, no sin in him. Show me where Joseph sinned. Can't find it. Guarantee it. Joseph was sold into Egypt, right? The Messiah went into Egypt, fleeing the wrath. Joseph was put into a pit. Messiah was put into a tomb. They took Joseph's coat of many colors, stripped him of his coat. Did they not do that to the Messiah? Stripped him of his garments? And they dipped his garments in blood. Joseph's garments dripped was by a kid, by a lamb or a goat, whatever it was, dipped in blood. And he took the coat to his father. It said, like it says in Revelations, he says his vesture was dipped in blood. That means his flesh was dipped in blood. His coat, just like Joseph's coat was dipped in blood. Then in Judah, there ain't nothing to do with Judah. Because Judah's the one, the lion. Bible said, beware of the lion. The lion comes what? To devour. To destroy. The Lion of Judah. They come to devour. The lamb didn't come. They're innocent. Joseph's the lamb. Judah he's the one who killed the lamb. Ain't that what lions do? The Lion of Judah? Just like Judah did to Joseph. They wanted to murder him at first and said, no, Judah said, no, we're going to make some money on this deal. We'll sell him to the Mennonites. Just like Judas did to the Messiah. We're going to make some money on this. I'm going to sell him out for 30 pieces of silver, as Judah sold Joseph out for 20 pieces of silver. See, when you get over there in Revelations where it said, that's talking about the 7 seals, that the line of Judah opened up the 7 seals. That's not what the original Greek says. Go to your Greek text and see what it says. I don't even need to go to it, but I know it. I know it's there. But common sense will tell you this is exactly what it was. The Lamb overcome the line of Judah to open up the 7 seals. Now, I asked you a question. Did the Lamb overcome the lion, or did the lion overcome the Lamb? Well, the Lamb overcome the line of Judah, the Levitical priesthood. And that's why we're under a new covenant priesthood. You messianic, stupid Jews or don't even know, and you followers of the Canaanite Jews, you're following the Antichrist Messiah. The Apostle Paul said they're come preaching another Messiah, another gospel, and another message, and another spirit. And that is the spirit of Antichrist that the Jews are pushing, and has changed the love letter, this Bible. Now, I didn't see this message didn't come to me overnight. You're talking about 20, 30 years of y'all dealing with me on this. He didn't allow me to get out there and preach something I don't know nothing. I don't know what I'm talking about. It took a long time. I've not even scratched the surface of what y'all showed me. Not even scratched the surface. 90% of everything the Christians believe and the Judites people believe is a lie. Because when you follow Judah, you're led into a lie. Because he's a lying spirit. Didn't the Bible say beware of Jewish fables? Beware? Well, you don't believe that, do you? You don't believe those words. You won't preach them words. Beware. How many Christians you see acting up there and say beware of Jewish fables? Lies is what that means. They can't do nothing but lie. What does it say in Revelation 2:9? The Jews do lie. The Canaanite Jews. Getting back to Joseph. He was perfect. And he said every knee was going to bow down. All the 11 brothers would bow down to him. That's the type of the Messiah. But every knee would bow down to the Messiah. Through the Joseph, the bloodline. And that's why it says in Acts 4:11, this is the shepherd's stone that the builders rejected. Who's the builders? The translators. See, King James had other translators of the Bible, like Tyndale and Martin Luther and a few others was back. They put them to the fire. They had them burned. Why did they want to have them burned for? They didn't just burn them. They burned the Bible, the books they had with them too. And they come out with a King James version. That the whole world believes is right, and it's not. You're going to sit there and tell me that this Bible, everything in that Bible is 100%. Let me tell you something. You can't even take the genealogies of Judah or any of the tribes and make heads or tails of it. You go to Matthew, you go to Luke, you go to different books, and the genealogy changes from book to book. Names change. Hell, Joshua is translated, I believe, 9 different ways. Hosea, Joshua, Hosea, all kinds of ways, but it's the same person, but it's translated 7 or 8 different ways. Why? Because Joshua was an Ephrathite. From Ephraim, just as Jesse was and David was through his descendants. And Boaz, and Ruth, and Hannah. Praise Yahuwah, the King of Kings and the Ruler of Rulers. I bind every demonic devil, every demonic demon, every force of darkness, everything that comes against the truth. Everything, every breath that hears me, obey or perish, saith Yahuwah. I promise you the day of judgment's coming. See, the Roman Catholic Church, the Pentecostal Church, Church of God in Christ, Baptist, First Baptist, Second Baptist, Central Baptist, United Pentecostal, Pentecostal Holiness, Jehovah's Witness, Methodist. Every single one of them teaching the same damnable lie, that the Jews are Yah's chosen people, when it's no Bible for it. And when he says, when you bless Israel, well, we know that Judah was not part of Israel. Judah was separated from Israel. That's why he commanded Judah to go into captivity to the Babylonians, but the 10 northern tribes went into captivity by the Assyrians before Judah went into captivity, proving there were two separate houses, two different peoples. So when you want to bless Israel, you better bless the Anglo-Saxon, Great Britain, American, Anglo-Saxon, Israelite people. They are the Israelites. Because you're blessing the devil's seed and you're not blessing Yah's people. And that's why America's cursed. You think America's blessed? Think Great Britain's blessed? They can't be blessed when the Jews control all the banking system. They rule the banks. They can some people call them the Illuminati, the Rothschilds, or whatever. They got different titles and different names. But they are the bankers. They own billions and trillions. They own NASA, the lying, demonic demon NASA. That's a demonic lie when we know we live on a flat plane, a flat earth. Anybody that don't see that, the Bible doesn't teach we're going through endless space on a round ball, going through endless space. Where does the Bible say that at? He said on the seventh day he rested from all his work. He quit working. He ain't creating nothing else after that. According to NASA, we're still planets being created. Oh, you think they made all these space movies and Star Trek and all these here demonic things to deceive people, get all these people and young people and everybody believing a damnable lie. We got a generation that don't want the truth, don't care about the truth, don't want to hear the truth. They don't care. The Bible says if you hunger and thirsty after truth, you'll get it. If you're not hungry, don't expect to get fed by the mighty, powerful name of Yah. You got to stir yourself. You got to stir yourself. You got to want it more than you want to breathe. Because in that day of judgment, he's going to say to most people, depart from me, I never knew you. You know why he's going to say it? Because they didn't give a damn about the word of the Most High. The Bible said you can gain the whole world, and become rich and famous and whatever. And you believe one damn thing, the devil will make you prosperous. He will make you to ride on top of the world if you'll serve him. But you're going to pay one day, because you're not going to live forever. So I'm telling you, Joseph is the bloodline of the Messiah. And Joseph is the birthright stone that Judah stole from Joseph while he was in Egypt for his whole life, 40 or 50 years. And that's why it says in Genesis that he stole the scepter. The scepter shall not depart from Judah until who? The one I've been preaching about, Shiloh, the Messiah, Joseph. When he came and he was crucified, he went back and took the scepter back and went back into heaven. Praise be to Yahuwah. And so he had to come up with a corrupt King James Bible and put Jerusalem from Genesis to Revelation, when there was no such thing as a Jerusalem in Genesis and Judges and Samuel, because Judah wasn't even born in Genesis. How could there be a Jerusalem back then? I'm fired up in the spirit today. I ain't got time to play around with deceivers and unbelievers and who don't care and who don't know. They want to mock his prophets, speak against them behind their back. But I got news. Be careful what you say and how you say it. Blessed be the rock of my salvation, Yahuwah, the bloodline, the shepherd stone of Israel, the rejected stone. Now I want to be one of those rejected stones. Hallelujah. All right. I guess I'm done here. I'm done for now.